Hello and welcome, guys, to a very, very sad episode of the Improvement Season podcast. I would love to actually have some sad violence playing in the background now while I'm actually saying it, because it's a sad moment for me, not so much for you, Steve, but perhaps it's coming, because today Germany officially announced an entire lockdown for the next month of November, and I would be very surprised if it only stays with this 1 month, because the last time they announced it, they said like, okay, we are going to sit down in 2 weeks, analyze the situation, and then it turned out that it was locked down for 3 months. So if we were to extrapolate and say like, okay, when the last time they said it's only for 2 weeks and it took 3 months, if they are now doing it for 1 month, oh boy, maybe it's locked down for 6 months. Don't know.
Yeah, it's crazy I was saying this to Charlotte. I was like, I really wish I kind of used the time between, like, because we're coming into this next lockdown. I wish I kind of used that time in between, I don't know, to do more. Like, and now we can't do stuff. I was like, I wish, I don't know, we'd gone away or something where there was kind of safe to go away or something, because now it's like, again, we can't do much. And luckily, I guess for us both at least, like, we don't want to do much anyway, but for you, the gym is a big part of your life. So it actually will have like a tremendous impact now. It's just madness. Like, we already saw, I think we spoke about it, where Liverpool, and they managed to campaign and get together, and gyms are staying open. But it probably is quite a lot of pressure seeing the rest of Europe close completely down. And then they're like, still loads of cases in the UK. But I'm not sure, like you said, the virologists or whatever are saying it's not the right way to combat it. No. It feels illogical.
At least here in Germany, they said like, okay, we have to learn to live with it. And doing it the same way as we've done it back in March is not the solution. This is just like, okay, I'm putting a plaster on a exploding wound, right? Where it's just like shooting out of the wound or in terms of blood, and you're just like trying to just put a plaster on and say like, it's going to be all right, and everyone knows it's not going to be all right. Right? If you pull off the plaster, it's dripping wet, and the wound is still massively just spitting out blood, right? And that's the thing. I think that so the virologists here in Germany have been saying like, okay, we need to build more acceptance around wearing masks. And I think, and this is of course my very, very unprofessional opinion, I think it should be like this, that wearing masks should be obligatory, and also that you then go out, and if you don't wear a mask, that you have to pay a hefty fine, so that people are fucking wearing the mask, whether they like it or not. Because we also know from the scientific literature that if both parties wear a mask, that the infection rate is actually very much decreased. Sure, there's always a risk, but I think that this is a better solution than just like shutting everything down and then reopening it again, sending everyone out again, and they are doing the same mistake over again. Right? I think that having it like this would probably serve the best also for the economy and also people's, I would think, psychology. While wearing a mask is very much psychologically demanding, and I know that from my mother-in-law, she's a practitioner, she is sitting in her clinic the entire day with a mask on. She says like it is psychologically demanding, but if you have like two extremes, what's the lesser evil? An entire lockdown, right? Or wearing a mask? But once again, this is my unprofessional opinion. Of course, I know that other people have different opinions on that, so take it very much with a grain of salt. But I don't think that the way it's being handled now is the appropriate way. But also, I have not the entire context. I'm not a politician who has sat down with the other ones and discussing it through. So they probably also have their reasons as to why they are doing the things that they are doing. But at the same time, for me, someone from the outside, many things just look arbitrary, where it's like, okay, we have to act now, and because we have to come up with a solution now, we're just doing this.
What I worry, like the analogy I would use is kind of like this. It's like a binge restrict cycle. Like you suddenly put these lockdown measures on everyone. It's 1,000 calorie deficit. And then over Christmas, you're all free to do what you want. And everyone binges their face off. And now it's again, you have to restrict. Yeah. Rather, let's try a sustainable approach like Pascal suggests. And just like you said, it's just people that I think, unfortunately, there are people that just people aren't aware maybe what the kind of like lockdown measures are, like the soft rules, which is, I don't know whose fault that is. People should stay aware of what the measures are, and then some people just don't care.
But that's the thing. As long as one person is walking around out there with the virus, it will continue to spread. Right? Funny enough, Steve, I didn't tell you that up until now. Yesterday, so I was sitting down with Katie, and yesterday Hugo was at his grandma, and that's why Katie and I had somewhat of an evening together, where we then said like, okay, let's watch a movie. What kind of movie should we watch? And I said like, Katie, you know what? We should watch Contagion. And this is a movie I haven't seen in a very long time. So I watched it when it came out, but I can't even recall when it came out, maybe 2013, 14 or so. And watching it now is very crazy. Like, honestly, there are so freaking many similarities, so unbelievably many similarities where you're just like, okay, they've predicted kind of the future. That is crazy because, I mean, the virus was being spread or came from a bat and being spread then via a pig as well. So the pig ate something that the bat had or so. It was originated from China as well, then being spread across the entire world. The measures, the entire, well, each and every single country took was basically the same. So the recommendations of not touching your face, wearing a mask, things like so. Basically, they have probably somewhat of a rule of what to do in a situation of a pandemic, and this is something that they've displayed in that movie. But it was very, very crazy to watch, especially considering that it could, I know it sounds awful, right? But it could have been so much worse because in that movie, the death rate was 25 to 30%. And people were just dying all across the board in a matter of like 4 to 5 days. Right? And just seeing the similarities just makes you realize like, okay, it's crazy first and foremost how many similarities there were, but at the same time also that while it is a bad situation, could have been much, much worse as well.
Yeah, I guess we're lucky that the majority of people seem to not be as badly infected. And I guess it wouldn't make a very good film if it wasn't actually severe. Imagine if it was just a film, it's like a documentary of COVID.
But I can only recommend anyone listening.
I haven't seen it.
Go ahead and watch it now. Like, honestly, it is crazy. Even if you've watched it in the past, maybe you can't really recall the entire plot. But man, I was sitting there and I was just like, and once again, I was crying, same as Katie. I can't watch any kind of movies anymore where kids are dying. I can't. I'm always crying like a baby. And Katie is then always looking at me and being like, "Oh, you're crying again? Yeah, sorry."
I think I teared up a little bit at a program last night. For whatever reason, I just, like, it must be that empathy thing. Like, I just see someone in a really bad way and I'm like, start tearing up. I'm like, what am I doing? It's not real life. It's fine.
Man, I'm always laughing about myself because it's just like, what happened to me? Ever since I'm a father, I'm just like an emotional mess. And there was even that movie of The Revenant. Katie has never seen The Revenant.
It's long, that, right?
Yeah. And I said to her, like, you have to watch that one. Come on, let's do it together. And it's already like 2 months ago or so. And when I watched it the first time, I was it's a good movie, but I was not very much emotionally impacted by what has happened. This time, when I watched it with Katie, I was just crying the entire movie. Each and every single time he thought of his killed son, I was just like, Tony.
It's pretty sad.
Yeah. God damn.
I've got a change in, well, I suppose actually to leave people, because they probably feel like, I don't know, they've heard us kind of complain about the lockdown and how it is, to give kind of a practical thing. Actually, I think from you, Pascal, it was really nicely put when you were talking me through it, like how pragmatic you were being in terms of, hopefully it's 4 weeks. If it's 4 weeks, survive 4 weeks. And this is coming from someone who's like, I don't know, a big part of your life is bodybuilding and the gym, and you're not kind of getting your knickers in a twist. You're not super stressed out about it. So yeah, I don't know. I guess just explaining what your plans are probably will help.
Yeah,
people.
sure. That's a great idea, and also great change of pace, because sometimes we end up just rambling on irrelevant things, kind of, right? I don't know whether people appreciate that or not. At some point, I think they don't. But yeah, so of course, when I heard the news, I was just like a little bit frustrated again. But the thing is, it was very much not the same as back in March. Simply because we have gone through a lockdown. It was 3 months long, and I realized that I survived. Right, the world kept spinning, and I also realized that the training I'm able to do from at home is still very, very effective. It must be said, something that I wouldn't want to do for the rest of my lifting career, but absolutely enough for a temporary amount of time. And I was actually then sitting down and emotionally reacted to the news I heard, because I was hearing that before it was public. It was kind of a rumor being spread around that they are going to meet up and probably coming up with those kind of very, very hefty restrictions. And I thought, like, okay, let me just order a couple of things in anticipation of a lockdown. If it doesn't happen, I can still cancel it or send it back again. So I emotionally ordered something and immediately canceled it, because I thought, like, you know what? I have basically everything that I need at home. And this is not a lot. In comparison to what you have at home, this is nothing. I have a pair of dumbbells. I have a weighted vest. And that's basically it. So I wanted to actually order a lat pull-down machine. And I have a pull-up station. That's something that I must say as well. I wanted to order a pull-up station, or kind of a cable station. Ended up not ordering it after all. I then ordered just a simple barbell, but that barbell is a very kind of a super tiny one, just 8 kilograms, millimeters of only 28 millimeters, and just 155 meters long. So very, very short one, but it gets the job done. I don't need a fancy Olympic barbell for at home just to do some rows, for example, or to put maybe it on my back to do some squats. What I then ended up doing is, here in the background, you see those kind of, this, right? The long stuff here.
Fencing almost.
I went so not the fencing, this is from a bat, but this piece of wood here.
Okay,
right?
yeah.
So I just, before the podcast, I went to a hardware store to actually then come up to build my own rack. So I didn't even talk with you about it.
I've seen a lot of people
This was
doing
very,
that.
very spontaneous. So at 11:30, I decided to actually do it here today. And now it's 2. So I draw up kind of my construction very, very quickly, went to the hardware store, purchased a couple of things, right? And then I will actually get to it here in the next couple of days and probably build my own rack. And this only cost me like $100. Of course, it won't be super cool, super fancy, but plenty enough in actually getting the job done. I will then attach my pull-up station to that, because the walls I have here are not very solid, and I'm afraid to just like attach it there and do some pull-ups with my body weight on it. So I decided to do it all on that rack then. And the rack, just like $100 basically, and I can always once again, what's it called? Break it down again once the lockdown is over, so that it's not just standing in the way. I didn't want to purchase any kind of equipment that is just like lying around once the gyms are reopening again. It just has to serve one purpose, and that is getting me through the lockdown period. And for this, I don't need fancy stuff. I don't need a bench. I don't need a fancy rack. I don't need a cable station or so. And that's why I decided to actually stay also very calm and really, really try to stay rational instead of doing some kind of emotional purchases, which in the end will just stand around, or which I then eventually have to sell again, which I could easily do. But I think I simply didn't want to do this. And once again, with one barbell, those pair of dumbbells, the weighted vest, now with that rack that I'm building, I basically have everything that I need. Right? I could actually purchase a little bit more weight, that is a problem. But I think that in the combination with the weighted vest and also the weights that I have available, I can probably make something good happen.
You use things like slow eccentrics, pauses,
exactly,
that sort of higher repetition ranges.
For example, I don't have enough weight probably for the squats, but what I then can do is, for example, put on my weighted vest, and then in addition to the squats or the weight that I'm putting on, right, and trying to actually make it then work with this, and then also once again slow eccentrics, and then with the pauses and all that kind of stuff. I think that this lockdown period will be a smooth ride in that terms, or in my training aspect. Of course, it interferes a little bit with my planning of the entire thing. I wanted to start a mini cut. You said to me over a voice message, you can still do a mini cut, and I'm quite certain that I can. And yeah, I just have to come up with like a final decision of whether it is, if I want this or not, right? But yeah, what's it like over in UK at the moment? Are there any kind of rumors of a lockdown or?
From what I've seen, since the whole thing that happened in Liverpool, for the gyms at least, it seems like they're very much like, they don't seem to think that the gyms are a cause because of the attention that's been brought to the data, which is great. So at the moment we have 3 tiers. So we have like a medium, high, and very high, which is great. There's no low. So no one can feel like at ease, which is hilarious. So at the moment, London's a tier 2, which means me and Charlotte can meet indoors and do stuff together, but we can't meet indoors with any other households unless it's a business meeting or you fake it's a business meeting or whatever you want to do there. So which is just crazy. But we can meet up with other households outside so long as we're 2 meters apart. So I actually met up with Mike, physio, Magic Mike, last weekend because he came into London, and we just stayed apart the whole time. We just kind of fist bumped or whatever. And that was great.
Except for the kisses.
Except for the
every
kisses.
now and then.
And the strip show from Magic Mike.
Is anyone watching? No, give me a kiss. Yes.
What was I going to say? This is the thing, like for couples, like, come on. I don't know, maybe some people are really diligent, but especially now, the second time it's happening, I think people are getting tired with that sort of thing. So
Have
I don't know
you seen the riots in I don't know what's it called in English, Turin in Italy?
I haven't, no. Yeah, because they've gone into a severe lockdown as well, haven't they?
And this is something that I can understand, and also what we've talked about here the last week. But let's get back into the things that you talked about, more so about the training and nutritional side of things.
Yeah, I think at the moment, to be honest, if you think back to the last lockdown, the UK were like, what, a week or 2 behind the rest of Europe? I think it could quite easily go that way. Yeah. And then I'm the same as you. And I did initially have that emotional response at the start of the whole lockdown situation. And I'm that type of person. I ain't going to spend the time to create a rack. I'm just like, fuck it. It's money. I'm just going to put it towards, I don't know, I can put it towards my taxes or whatever, write it off. And I think at the back of my mind, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have a garage gym now, because what if there's future lockdowns and all this shit, as we have, I don't know, we may eventually move into our house. It's taking a long time. So yeah, for me, it was like, I'm lucky because it's actually an investment that's eventually paying off. But I think your pragmatic approach now is awesome. Like I'd almost like to have had that approach at the beginning. But yeah, it's, I think for people listening, it's really nice to hear, because I think a lot of them, a lot of people just kind of get they're like, oh, lockdown, I give up. Yeah. But you're kind of like taking a proactive approach and being like, no, I can go to the hardware store, I can pick up this, I can create a rack, I can get a barbell, like this is all I need. Perfect. I can create a great training stimulus for a long period of time with this. And that's what we learned the first time. And I think your kind of comment there of like, everyone came out, we survived. Or if you didn't do so well the first lockdown, do better this time round. Kind of give yourself a bit of a kick up the arse. You can do better. So yeah, I really like your approach, and I think people appreciate that as well. Fast, efficient fat loss. Does that sound like music to your ears? The mini cut movement might just be for you. Mini cuts are like robbing the fat bank. You want to get in and out with as much fat as possible. In a short period of time, you could easily look to lose 6 to 12 pounds of fat. The mini cut movement is excellent. There's group support for extra accountability and also expert help within the group. We have educational videos to keep you on track along the way, and you get all your nutrition and training customized and individualized for you. So if that sounds of interest, get involved with the mini cut movement.
Yeah, and the thing is, it's like you said, first and foremost, I just want to comment on your investment that you are planning on building a home gym at some point. I am right now not. Maybe in 20 years when the kids are out of the house, then there is enough space in our house that one room can actually become a training facility. And then I would get the Tyrex, the 10,000 pound kind of rack, or whatever castle, machine castle. It's crazy. It's amazing.
People need to Google that.
I mean, if you really have limited space at home, this is the thing. This is the thing. I know it's expensive, but it's also so great at the same time. And it would easily probably fit into that one room where I would then plan and actually building somewhat of a home gym. But right now, because it's so far in the future, I don't want to actually purchase equipment right now that is then just lying in the corner and just rotting away and just taking up space. We have moved into the house so that we actually can have a cozy environment where there's not too much, garbage lying around. This is the beauty about a house, that you have now your own project. It's not an apartment anymore, where in the back of your mind, you're always thinking, I will move out of this apartment anyway at some point, and then I will get proper furniture and I will do something very nice, right? But now it's a house and I want it to actually be clean and look good. And that's why I don't want to just put so much garbage up here just for the temporary amount of time where the lockdown is happening. And I know once again that a good training stimulus can be provided with very, very little equipment. Is it like something that I would like to do for the rest of my career? Absolutely no. Absolutely no. But the thing is, it isn't. And we know that. It's not going to be a lockdown for the rest of our lives.
I have one more off-topic thing I wanted to bring up, just very quickly. Only because, we can touch on this very quickly, because we spoke about anime last week, and then I started looking on Netflix for anime, and I told you I came across Baki, which... I then asked you if you've watched, and you never replied to me.
Oh,
I want to know if you watched it, because
no, I haven't yet.
It's so fucked up.
Yeah,
it's super fucked up, and I love it. I'm hooked. I don't know why. I'm just like, what else are they going to do? Yeah,
and this is something. There are so many great animes out there that you've probably never heard of or never considered in watching. And by the way, shout out to all of the guys who commented. There were some great animes as well. Like, for example, Full Metal Alchemist is one of them. Other suggestions or just like favorites that have been named. And there are so many great ones out there. And because it's like I said, there are so many genres in the anime realm that you can actually find something for you. And that's why they are probably also as successful and as popular in Japan as they are. And so many things are. So Hollywood is very often actually copying like anime stories and trying to put them into real life adaptations. For example, Edge of Tomorrow, I think it was an anime. It was a manga. That is then actually being. And this movie is great. I don't know if you've ever watched that one.
I think
Tom Cruise, where it's like Groundhog Day, and very, very cool. Groundhog Day is also very, very cool. Bill Murray, what a great actor. But Edge of Tomorrow, he has the ability to then always go back in time and relive the same day. And it's freaking amazing. Also the characters, how they are changing. And that was based, I think, on a manga, if I'm not mistaken. And there have been so many adaptations and also inspirations into Hollywood. For example, I brought up Cowboy Bebop, and I think that Quentin Tarantino is one of those guys who's very heavily influenced by a style like this as well. It's amazing. What can I say? And I didn't watch Baki so far, so I have to do that at some point.
Part of it is, I don't know, it's just incredibly gruesome, and these guys are jacked, and they're short episodes, so it's quite easy to just like...
What is it, like 20 minutes?
Yeah, like 20 minutes long. Oh. So, yeah, if anyone's watched that, let me know in the comments how you like it.
Isn't it about like a boxer?
Kind of. It's like, the beginning is something along the lines of there's like 7 guys who are they're on like death row, and they're like super duper jacked, and they all break out of prison at the same time, and they travel to Japan because they want to kind of, their goal in life is to be defeated in a fight, and they've never been defeated. And Baki is like this guy he's like the strongest kid in the world or something. So they're all going there to like fight, and Japan brings out their best fighters, and yeah, they just do shit. But it's not just like average fighting. This is like hardcore, like brains exploding type of stuff.
Nice. I have to watch it. I have to give it a try. Other animes that I freaking love at the moment, and that I'm waiting for the next season. For example, One Punch Man, freaking amazing. I love that. I love it. It's so amazing and so frustrating. I'm waiting for the next season. Another one I'm waiting for the next season is My Hero Academia. I would imagine that the next season is going to be crazy and wild. And just great animes out there. And also Demon Slayer, of course. Demon Hunter.
Mandalorian, the next season of that's coming out soon as well, I think.
That's true.
I've heard. Anyway, less off topic, maybe to questions.
Yeah, let's go. So from our very, very loyal supporter, Andrew Potterchak. Supporter. See, I said that. What's in the future for Pascal and Steve? Goals, things you might want to get more knowledge on or improve on besides lifts. Improve on besides your lifts.
Good question. This is something that I don't regularly visit for myself. I feel like I should have an audit every year where I have like, what are my goals for this year? Especially like knowledge and just personal self-development. I don't know. I don't have a good answer off the top of my head. Do you have anything, Pascal?
Yeah,
I have to think.
I mean, there are a couple of things that I don't want to speak out loudly because I want to have those goals for myself instead of feeling then the pressure from the outside because I said it at some point. You know what I mean? And these goals are only for myself. And by me talking them out loudly, I have the feeling that sometimes I then have an obligation for other people or in front of other people to then fulfill these things. And we never know what is happening in life. Sometimes other goals arise, and sometimes other interests arise as well, or our interests in a specific field actually, they dissipate. And that's why some of the goals I have for myself, I keep for myself. But one I can say is I would like to be financially independent in like 10 years or so.
How does that mean retiring?
Not necessary. Retiring would, in my understanding, retiring would mean that you are basically leaning back and don't do anything at all anymore. And this is something that I can't see myself ever doing, ever. All right. And I don't. But I want to be at a place where I'm not, I basically don't require to then earn much, much more money and that means that the financial independence is being based off of perhaps kind of, I hate that term, but passive income or so. I want to build some revenue streams that are just like building in the background up to a point where I'm then so financially independent because they are generating constant revenue streams where I'm then not needing to stress about certain things, because I think that money is only a means to an end that gives you somewhat quality in life and perhaps offers you some opportunities. And I want to feel free. And I think that money is you're becoming a slave to the system. I know that sounds very much conspiracy-like for many people, but it kind of is. You're always being taught from when you're young. You need to have X, Y, Z to be happy. You need to collect these kind of things. You need to gather this and that. You need to buy, I don't know, whatever it is in order to feel good about yourself. And this is also what commercial is mostly based on, that they are planting an idea into your head that actually is not your idea, but theirs. And then you have the desire to actually want that product because you think that your life will be enhanced with that certain product. And I think that money is kind of then the root of I don't want to say all evil, because money is just what it is. It's kind of a belief system. We give it power, but I want to be independent of that, so that I can decide whatever it is that I want to decide whenever it is that I want to decide something. Does that make sense?
I think I probably need to have a better education in the areas that you do to appreciate what you're talking about. Because I think as someone who, like, my investments are, I have my money, and then we've bought a house now, and I have like my things around me here. That's about all I've got. So I've never looked into like finance to that degree that you have. So I think you're probably talking about something that some people will be able to fully understand, who are probably into what you're into, and other people like kind of get it. But I think we've always spoken about, at least for us, that we'd like to, something I would like personally for the business at least, is to be, for both of us, I think, to be less in the business and be able to oversee the business. Because at the moment we're very much in it. So we're in the thick of it. We're coaching lots and lots of people. Whereas I think it'll be nice for us at some stage when we're bigger to be able to have less of that and be able to be like, I don't know, oversee the coaches more, oversee kind of various member site things. So that kind of, like you said, like the side stream that's coming in of kind of revenue, where, and you can kind of almost pick and choose your work a little bit more. So there's a bit more freedom with that, which, yeah, I mean, it's hard to get to that point with a business at that point.
Absolutely. And this is kind of also what I'm referring to some extent. So to put it very, very simplistically, I want to not rely on my monthly income. Does that make sense? I mean, I don't want to jump from one month to the next in order to pay my rent or so. I want to be at a point where I'm just like, I know that I have the financial power to actually then go out and pay for all of the running costs, such as for the house, for example, things for the kids, etc., etc. And I know that this is automatically being generated, and everything else is just like, of course, a nice to have. I mean, everything that we're talking about is very much like a luxury. And I know that. And I know that for some people, when they are listening to that, it's just like a punch in their face, especially during those times of COVID. But this is what I'm working towards. This is not meant that I ever will get there. I'm trying my very best. And it could also end up with me on the streets. But I have a goal. This is something that I work towards to. And once again, it's not guaranteed that I will ever get there. But I just want to be at a point where I'm just not reliant on the revenue stream, for example, of my clients. So that whenever a coach is saying like, yeah, I'm just doing it to help people, get out of here. Like, honestly, if that was like this, it would be lovely, but that is not the truth. That doesn't mean that you have to then take a look at your clients like dollar bills or so, right? But it just means that whatever it is that you are doing and loving to do, you need to have a revenue stream in order to continue doing that. So that's why you are charging people money for the service that you're providing, and also for the knowledge and experience that you've gained over the last years, right? If you're just doing it to help other people, then you would not charge anything at all, right? Because that would be very hypocritical of you.
Yeah.
But we all understand that knowledge and experience also is worth paying for, and that people need to make a living from something. And why not pay then the individual for their knowledge and experience? But it would be lovely, and this is something that I would love to actually get to a point to, and to be able to offer my services for maybe much less, and maybe sometimes nothing at all, because I actually have worked so hard and so long to be in a position where I'm independent of that revenue stream. And then I could be the mercenary of being like, yeah, I can offer my help for free if you want to. Right? I know it sounds all very, very crazy and all the kind of stuff. And once again, I don't know if I ever get there, and whether this is just like an unrealistic goal or illusion that I'm thinking of. But I think it's worth aiming for something like that.
I think ultimately that's what everyone wants, isn't it? That
Totally.
financial freedom.
Absolutely.
Like,
Totally.
it's hard to get to.
No, absolutely. I totally agree. I mean, if you ever were to ask someone, like, would you rather be financially free or dependent?
Working paycheck to paycheck is nothing anyone wants. What I was going to add to that, the only thing I was going to add business-wise is we had always had a dream of having our own facility. And that is something, it's on my mind always. Yeah. It's just such a, like when people talk about it, it's not a small undertaking. Like I've looked into it very briefly and there's a lot that goes into that sort of thing. That would be a great thing. Like if we had a HQ and our own little gym, man.
I would be fucking scared though to do this.
Especially given everything that's happened. Yeah. How many gyms, unfortunately, are going to be really, really under the kind of knife or under whatever it's called.
This is also where then my goal once again comes into play. Just imagine that you could do something like this without the risk of your existential, your life depending on that. This is the great thing about being financially independent. And that's why I think it is such a compelling goal for me. Also because I grew up in an environment where we had not really a lot of money. And my mom and also my stepfather, they were chasing the money so desperately. And they were so much seeking like materialistic goods. And this is something that I simply don't want. That's also one of the reasons perhaps why I'm so frugal, because I don't need a lot. I really don't. And that's why, I rather save the money and invest the money in order to possibly grant me some freedom in the future instead of being like my mom and my stepfather and being like in shackles of the money.
And on a related note, I guess, and this would be me being less frugal because I am a frugal person as well, even though sometimes, I don't know, it probably does, I don't know if it comes across like that or not, but I don't do much. So I don't have much of an expenses. Something I would like to do more, I think, and this probably comes along with a little bit more confidence and freedom business-wise, is like more holiday. And I'm sure you'll want it with family holidays and things, because I'd like to visit more areas of the world, explore more. That sort of thing would be, that's a goal of mine, is definitely, I want to go to Asia. Like I just really want to go to Hong Kong and Japan and things. So these are some of the things that I definitely, especially the last 2 years, I don't think I haven't really done anything. So yeah, I'd love to be able to do that. And yeah, like for you, I don't know, taking your kids to like Disney or something, I don't know if that's in your mind, but a lot of families do that sort of thing, and that costs.
Man, me too. And this is, absolutely. Whenever I'm seeing some kind of pictures from crazy nature, I'm just like, man, there's so much I need to see in my lifetime. And I know that I don't have enough time to actually see all of and discover all of those places, unfortunately. But yeah, this is definitely one of those. And it would be great to just travel the world at some point.
We have to leave Charlotte and Katie for 2 months, and we're just going on a Revive Stronger road trip. Yeah. Just do it. I don't know. Some of our client work, train at really cool gyms, and then just hike everywhere.
That would be amazing.
It would be a midlife crisis for us both or something.
I mean, so to come back to Andrew's original question, he asked for besides lifts or besides lifting, and I think that we answered it quite in depth now. Of course, there are just like a handful of things that you always have in the back of your mind, and I think that it gave the listener also a good idea of who it is that we are and what it is that, or the driver behind certain things as well, and also in regards to just like how, or the drivers for coaches, because once again, I think it's a false perception if anyone is saying like, I'm just doing it because I want to help people. I mean, at some point you would just be sick and tired if you don't get any kind of revenue coming from that. And this is also, so if you're offering your help for free to someone, you can only do it for so long, because at some point your time is probably also precious to you. And that's why it needs to actually get compensated at some point in some regards.
Yeah, for sure. And I guess just you think about some of the experts out there, someone like Mike, who he doesn't directly coach, But think about all the things he's doing,
Yeah.
like how much help, like he's helping so many people now. And not that we're experts like Mike, but imagine we could be in a position like him where actually we can do things like help more people rather than helping someone one-on-one. We can help hundreds of thousands of people. Like that's incredible what he's doing.
Yeah.
But he's built to that point because he used to coach.
Totally.
Like Eric Helms, great example as well, I guess.
Yeah. And he's getting a compensation in a different form. He's also generating revenue. And that compensation is an acknowledgement from those people and also kind of a form of gratitude and appreciation of the work that is actually being then put into all of these things. And I think that sometimes this is overlooked by other people as well.
Get the podcast to Joe Rogan levels. So all we have to do is the podcast. Imagine. That would be pretty immense.
Yeah. I think we are too niche for that though.
Just a bit.
Yeah. So let's go over to the next question. That is from Joost Zattler. What to do when you hit the upper limit of your rep range interval and you increase the weight but can't reach the lower limit in the following sets? Do you have to wait to increase the weight until you, for example, hit the upper limit on 2 consecutive sets? Is it best to progress the weight for each set independently? Does the target rep range interval only count for the initial set and you are good to go when you hit at least 5 reps in other sets? If not, what would be the lowest limit for, e.g., an interval from 20 to 30 reps? Love your show and all of the great content you are putting out. Best greetings from Germany.
I appreciate
greetings
that.
to Germany as well.
So this is a good question because I think he's identifying different progression models essentially, where there is like the double progression, triple progression model, where you are kind of making sure you're landing within the rep range or all reps are hitting the upper end of the rep range before you add load, that sort of thing. And then he mentions kind of a different model of progression, which I might call the auto-regulated progression, which we tend to use, where it's a case of like we can fall out of the rep range and we're more so looking at kind of how many sets are we doing in the week? Is it within our kind of volume parameters? So for me, I tend to set someone like, I don't know. Actually, I used to use the 5 to 10 rep range for clients, but I don't want reps to drop below 5. So in week 1, if they were kind of like hitting 6 reps already, and then on their second set, easily 5, maybe if they're 3 sets, go down to 4. And as mentioned, don't ideally want reps to drop below 5, not because below 5 we're not getting a hypertrophic adaptation. We are, but the stimulus to fatigue ratio drops out of favor where below 5 repetitions, the fatigue is just exponentially higher. So we're better off using 5+ generally. So I tend to now use a 7 to 10 rep range so that if people are they're more so aiming towards the 10 or at least a 7 so that they're less likely to fall as low as below 5. But that's how I tend to program is I have a like 10 to 15 rep range for the first set. If you fall out of that for the following sets, that's okay, so long as in the scope of what we're doing here, that's still good performance. If it is looking like it's getting below 5, or maybe you're in the gym and you can do this like I do this, and maybe I'm not below 5 reps, but I've got a set and I'm just like, you know what, that's beating the shit out of me. I'm better off just doing a down set. I can recover from this volume. It's still productive volume, but I'm getting a better stimulus for the fatigue by doing a down set of maybe a 10% reduction of load. And that might bump me up into the rep range. So I think if you could give someone a black and white answer of, yeah, if you drop out the rep range, then stop. That's a good probably thing for beginners. As you get more advanced, you understand things more, you understand your volume tolerances, you can probably utilize this approach of, again, not trying to drop below 5 repetitions. And as your stimulus to fatigue ratio starts dropping off, maybe adding in a down set, assuming you're in your volume, kind of a productive range of volume. Hopefully that wasn't super confusing because I imagine it could be. Because the question in itself was probably a little bit confusing.
Yeah, but I think it was a great question because this is something that many of my athletes also then...
Hey, Pascal here. I just quickly wanted to remind you of our online coaching service. At Revive Stronger, we put a huge emphasis on the personal aspect of our coaching. And if you want to take your physique and knowledge to the next level, hit the link in the description below.
Sometimes experience as well. And they are then confused of like, okay, I shouldn't be supposed to actually go outside of my repetition ranges, right? The thing is that I was so much more dogmatic in the past as well. And I was just like prescribing way too narrow rep ranges and didn't really think about the entire fatigue that is being accumulated and then the natural progression of like the reps or RER being dropped. So something has to give, right? Just physiologically speaking, your high threshold motor units, they are very susceptible to fatigue. And just from a physiological perspective, if you truly push to an appropriate proximity to failure, you need to see a performance decrease. It's otherwise physiologically impossible, right? At some point, you need to see a reduction in your overall performance. And if not, once again, this is something that we've talked about in the past. You have to look close at your overall intensity and the way you gauge those sets. With that being said, I was way more dogmatic in the past in regards to the repetition ranges. Now I'm prescribing quite a wide range of reps. So something like, for example, 5 to 10, 8 to 12, 10 to 15, 10 to 20 or so, something like that, depending on the exercise, because some exercises, due to the nature of the muscle fibers, they are more susceptible for a steeper drop-off in performance, whereas others, where it's not as pronounced. I am always saying to my athletes that I want them to aim for the high end of the repetition range for the first set of a given exercise. Because if you do that, the consecutive sets, they will automatically drop and come closer and closer to the low end of the repetition range, depending on how many sets it is that you do. If you're then also able to actually be at the high end of the repetition range, then you are very susceptible and actually being able to put more load on the bar also for the next time. So let's just say you've been able to do 10 repetitions in a rep range for 5 to 10 for RER 4. Then of course, if then the next week comes around and you were to actually drop the RER and you would add one more repetition, you would fall outside of the repetition range. Is that necessarily bad? No, I don't think it makes that much of a difference whether you are then one rep out of the repetition range, so above or below that, or even some repetitions above that. If you are in the groove, if you start an exercise and you purely go by your RER and not just by what is in your head of thinking like, I have the repetition range of 5 to 10, so I need to stop once I approach rep number 10, then you can actually perhaps squeeze out so much more, because the repetition range is just basically an arbitrary range that you're giving yourself. It even could be something like, I don't know, 7 to 17. It doesn't really matter. We know from the scientific literature that a specific proximity to failure is required, and a specific repetition range is basically only a means to an end. And based off of that, you can then build your program around that. So as long as you are working in those parameters, you're absolutely all right. So if you have prescribed a number of repetitions and you're going into the set only gauging the RER, and then you're falling outside of the repetition range, going beyond that, totally all right. Totally all right, right? Then you're just adjusting maybe for the next session or so. And based off of that, you are then progressing in a quite nice manner. If you then feel like you are falling outside of the repetition range below that, could mean that you need to rest a little bit longer if you're not resting long enough to give yourself a proper rest time in between sets. Perhaps the exercise itself is just highly fatiguing. So for example, if someone like Steve is squatting now up to 10 repetitions, how long can he maintain that? Probably not for 4 or 5 sets to stay in a specific rep range, and then something like possibly drop sets or low drops are actually being considered as well, or just considering, okay, the amount of work that I can do qualitatively in that repetition range is like 2 or 3 sets. Everything beyond that, I'm falling too much out of the repetition range. Maybe this is then the time to consider a different exercise for SFR purposes as well. So there are many, many ways in going about it, but I wouldn't stress too much about if you are going a little bit outside of the repetition range, because the rep range is basically just an arbitrary number that we are basically orientating ourselves at.
Yeah. No, I think that's very well said. And hopefully, Kieran, I think once you understand that, for like so many things like this, I view them as like seeing through the matrix. You're no longer bound to these like set and rep protocols. You realize, I'm just trying to create a stimulus that I can recover from for next time and improve upon. It's like, oh, cool.
And ever since I have done that, right, of allowing myself to just go by the aria and have that repetition range more as a guide instead of a set rule, I'm able to progress so much better, because if I'm then going beyond those, let's say for something like, I don't know, tricep pushdowns or so, all of a sudden I'm able to do 17 repetitions, but I had only prescribed like 10 to 15 repetitions. Just imagine I would have stopped at 15 just because I prescribed that. I would have left 2 repetitions in the tank, even though that I had it in me. And that can give you sometimes the false perception of thinking, oh yeah, this was the aria that I had prescribed for myself. This is also one of the reasons why I think that this shit test week, the thing that we've talked about, and once again, shout out to Arne, your client, who gave me that idea and inspiration about filming your last week of a mesocycle where you push to actually 1 or 0 aria and let the mobile phone do the counting for you, can be so useful, because once again, it takes out the thing of your mental barrier of sticking to a certain rep range and thinking that the 15 repetitions maybe that you're hitting is also the aria that you have prescribed, where in reality, sometimes that's simply not the case.
Yeah, I think that shit testing is particularly really good for like more not novice, but newer people to RAR.
Yeah,
for sure.
Cool. One more question, I would say, and then I have to pick up the kids. So let's take Kitsit Ludovic. Cool name. Can you continue to progress hypertrophy-wise when the loads stagnate for a while, but your technique is getting better? This is my case due to lower back injury. My back squat and front squat are progressing, but I concentrate on the form. Thanks, guys.
So this is a nice question because it's nice and easy and nice and quick in that is a form of progression in itself. I would always say technique comes first. Now, some people have a good technique, but it could be better. And so you can, in those occasions, stay with the same load and just look to increase like my muscle connection or whatever it might be. And I think at times I need to do that more, where I'm so focused on, I need to do like, I don't know, 2.5 kilos more or something. It's like, well, actually, and I should do this in my spreadsheet. And sometimes I do it. I note down, I'm like, stay at the same weight and just improve technique next week. Because sometimes, I don't know, something goes loose, especially on like a bent over row maybe, or maybe a squat where your pause wasn't quite as good. That is progressive overload in its own right. When you're improving the technique, I say this all the time to like clients and things, like if you're using better technique but less load, that's not less mechanical tension. It's more mechanical tension actually on the muscle group, because now you're using the muscle rather than using something else that you're not targeting. So yeah, for him, for sure, that is progressive overload. Keep it up. And then once you have your technique in place,
talked about it here in the last episode where we talked about a neurological skill. So the more you do a specific movement, the more neurologically prompt you are for that movement, and the more motor units you can recruit as well. So some people, they have a high level of motor unit recruitment from the get-go, right? Because it's a neurological thing, and some people don't. And building that over time makes you even better at mind-muscle connection, and then also aware of the way you move in time and space. And I think that this is a great example that we can see all the time with like people who have been training since a very, very long time, that they aren't expecting to see a rapid performance increase any longer. So for example, in load, reps, or RER. And that's why they are focusing so much on just like each and every single rep, getting better and better and getting more out of that single rep. While the load maybe stays the same, the repetition range stays the same, but you can definitely improve and progress quite nicely in trying to make each and every single repetition count more because of neurological adaptations that still take place in the background. And you may not notice it at first, but this is definitely something over time then.
I think this is why what we've talked about before is our experience of actually needing less volume and we're being able to get more from less. I think in hindsight, maybe what we did previously where we did more wasn't wrong. It's just we needed that to get the stimulus that we desired. Whereas now we just need less because we're better at it. Yeah. We're more accurate. We have, like you said, we can fire things better, which is, thinking about it, it's just like, oh yeah.
Yeah, and
cool.
you brought up the example of like posing and being able to control single muscle groups, right? If you start off with a specific skill, you are very, very uncoordinated. So for example, starting to play the guitar, super, super hard to do everything at the same time, right? But the more you practice, the more those neurological pathways are actually then being cemented. And then it's getting easier and easier up to the point where you then even could do other things beside that. And this is basically the same thing. But this, of course, takes time. Getting good at playing the guitar takes time. Getting good at a different skill, such as, I don't know, dribbling a ball, takes time as well. And same goes for bodybuilding. And I think that sometimes people are forgetting about how much time needs to be dedicated for a certain skill to be good at something. So many people start lifting and they expect that after 1 to 2 or 3 years, they look freaking fantastic. For some, that may be the case. And that's the same with all of the other things or skills in life as well. Some people will have a very easy time making those first steps, but the majority of people need to put in the time and effort in order to learn and cement those neurological pathways in order to fulfill a certain skill or to execute a certain skill. And that's the same here as well. And you will get better over time. And actually, with those cementation of neurological pathways, you will be able to then very much target muscle groups. And this is something that I've experienced myself. And one of my athletes, shout out to Chris, he just recently reported now he can basically do every single back movement and make it feel in the back wherever he wants to feel it in the back. So he can even control whether he wants to more so feel it in the midst of his back or in the lower side of his back or so, right? And this is, of course, also that takes time. That doesn't just happen overnight. And this is what we are referring to.
Yeah, it comes up quite frequently with clients because they're hearing so much about the mind-muscle connection and stimulus and like pump and disruption. And for people who are newer to lifting and haven't lifted maybe with a given technique for a period of time, those things are hard to identify. But the more it's just, and I always just say to them, like, you're doing a fantastic job. Your technique's really good. You're clearly exerting yourself well. The speed of the bar slowing down. Keep it up. Eventually, things will just slowly click. It just takes time.
It's like the scene in Karate Kid where he's just like fighting with that tree the entire time. And has to, what is it again? His jacket or so?
Wipe on, wipe off.
Yeah, jacket over his head and stuff like that, right?
Okay.
And the same movement pattern the entire time. And at some point, he's complaining, why the hell do I need to do these kind of movements all the time? And I think Mr. Miyagi, is it Mr. Miyagi?
Yeah.
Comes up to him without saying something and then makes some moves. And he is actually reacting in that kind of way. The movement pattern he has actually learned over weeks and weeks and weeks. And it has become like just an automated process without even him realizing that. And that's kind of the same thing. You just go through these kind of things over and over and over again, and you get better at those up to the point where it's just a neurologically automated process.
That's what they call the flow state, isn't it? Where you don't even need to really think about it. You just like, for squats, you get under there. Yeah. You're not thinking about every cue in your head. You're not thinking about, you just go. And you're like, oh, it's all quad. You can just feel that internal stimulus. So yeah. Really cool. Yeah, and the Karate Kid's a perfect example.
Yeah. So let's leave it here and let's head over to, as always. So the last times people have not reached out for the free membership, right?
No,
they weren't interested in that. I don't know why.
Maybe the last couple, I didn't have anyone reach out. So I hope this person does reach out.
So let me share my screen. And if not,
give them access.
It's your bad. I mean, don't know what you are missing out on. Where is it? Like here, screen. Like this. Where are we? No. Wait a second. Where are we? Ah, there it is.
Desktop Instagram.
Here it is. So, as always, here's the video. All right. I copy pasting it. It was a 174 push to new highs of body weight to build more muscle. And also, we've been asking about a favorite anime. So, let's see whose favorite anime is coming up. We had 23 unique commenters, and we have Nick. What is all that mumbling gibberish? Just give us the juice. Nah. We need to pick someone who has actually picked an anime. Pick another winner.
This happened to us last time, didn't it? We
sorry.
just get all the people, the haters.
Nothing.
Here we go.
Hunter x Hunter is a favorite of mine. The 2011 version specifically. Yeah, I just finished that one just a while back, and I was devastated to realize that the writer, it's called Hunter. What's it going? No, hiatus as well in the anime realms, because the writer is always delaying the new mangas, and people are assuming that it will never be written to an end, unfortunately, because it's a great show, and I would have loved to see how it's continuing. Anyway, yeah, one more thing here. Any kind
trying to think of a question for everyone. Do you have a question, or shall I try and dig one out? I was going to say,
I was thinking of something maybe with the lockdown in regards to training or so, but don't know if that's a good one.
Yeah, I don't know how to. The only thing I was thinking of was, what muscle group do you have the best mind muscle connection with, and the worst?
Exactly, that's what I wanted to say as well. The best and the worst mind muscle connection of an exercise. All right, guys. So thank you very much for tuning in once again. I really do hope that the gyms stay open at your place. And if not, don't worry. We got you covered as well. If you need some kind of guidance or a home workout plan, we have one over on our website. Just sign up, enter your email address, and it will be sent to you. Other than that, I don't think that we have anything else to say, right?
We should have said that from the get-go, shouldn't we?
We should.
Most people are going to... Someone comment saying, I downloaded your free template and it was amazing. Thanks so much.
Yeah.
Then maybe people will. Or people over on Spotify or wherever.
We're the worst when it comes to promoting ourselves. So here we are, guys. Thank you very much once again. And we will speak to you guys very soon.
So I'm Steve Hall, founder of Revive Stronger and a coach of Revive Stronger.
My name is Pascal Flor. I'm the co-owner of Revive Stronger and also a coach, of course.
Revive Stronger has probably been going solidly for 3 years, roughly about 3 years.
Revive Stronger, to me, it is becoming kind of my child, my foster child. It's the gathering and getting together of like-minded people.
We've been expanding the coaching team, which is helping us help more people, but each coach can only help a certain number of people.
Right now, it's all over the place. We have YouTube, we have Facebook, we have Instagram, but there isn't that community aspect behind that.
And so the next step for us is developing a membership site.
So basically, we want to create a family and a community that is then benefiting from another.
A really cool community for people within our little niche is going to be a website.
They will get early access to our podcast.
You can access us, ask us questions.
The community aspect, we have a forum there. You can ask questions, but also you can log your journey.
There's also going to be courses on there.
Courses, presentations on different topics. Discount of past seminar footage. We will log our journey as well. We'll start vlogging.
We're going to have documentaries.
Our entire athletic journey. Furthermore, they get access to an exercise video library.
The exercises that we love for hypertrophy and maximizing hypertrophy, we're going to go through those in depth, telling you how to execute them.
We kept them concise and also mobile friendly so that you can watch them in between your sets.
I'm super excited to grow this community. The amount of value that we're going to be delivering is huge. And I'd love you to be part of it.
You will get so much out of that.
I'll see you inside.